Okay, I gotta go. I don't
Mr.
think.
Mayor, I have a question for you.
Thank you.
Before you leave, can I ask you one question? For the residents, is there anything that the residents can do to help in the fundraising and the campaigning, how we do that?
Okay. Yes, that this is, hopefully this will come out of this meeting. And Andre, I'm very impressed with you, the work that you've done here. We want this to be an experience to take what could be conceived a negative and make it into a positive. I think the commissioner has chronologically taken you through the process. What has happened, what has not happened. When all is said and done, it's the $5 million we gotta raise. When all is said and done, what we're trying to do is see how we can lessen that $5 million, which will lessen what we have to borrow. And this is where you come in. We have established already, because we knew we didn't want to put this on the taxpayers' back. So we have to raise it from the community in other ways. I indicated naming rights, advertising, fundraising, lessen the cost of the $5 million. And we can talk all you want to, but that's where we are. Thank you.
We'd like to thank the mayor for coming out. We appreciate your time.
Good afternoon. And I have a luncheon at 12, so I'm going to be very succinct and try to hopefully bring some clarity. Okay? Real quick. The issue at hand right now is about the $5 million gap. That's the issue at hand. Now, the county is not waiting for us to tell them about all the numbers. What the county is waiting for is for us to tell them how we're going to fill the gap. The county has been given all the numbers from the comptroller, and they also given a report from me. The council was given a report of all of the expenditures from me. Can't speak about what they're looking for from the comptroller, but from me, from my office, everything that I have executed for payment related to Memorial Field, the council has. It was given to them in a meeting. Now, the other thing that we should understand is that there's no expenditure with Memorial Field that can occur without one, it going through the mayor's office, to the council for approval, to the Board of Estimates. Okay, so everybody's aware of the process. So any money that has been spent, the three bodies have been involved in it. I just want to, I'm giving facts, right? I'm giving facts. Any money, okay, again, any money related to Memorial Field as it pertains to the city's expenditures have all come either through my office, to the mayor, through the council, to the Board of Estimates for payment. That comptroller then pays the bills. That's the process. Now, prior to the new administration, yes, there was $2.5 million approximately that was spent. 1.3 on the design, 1.2 on the design, 1.3 on the demolition. The other questions that you had is the secret. The secret was done, and it was done based upon the plan, the original plan. Once the plan changed, the question had to be, did you need a new secret? We went back, and based upon the changes in the plan, there was no need for a new secret, but there was a need for a new environmental assessment, which was done, and also copies were given to the county, to our legislator, of that report. So that was done as well, right? Where we are, so the question you all asked us, where we are today? Where we are today is we have a new design that was done, right? We have a new design that also was communicated to the county, which they were aware of. At first, they had some concerns about, is it significant changes? That's why, if you look at the pamphlet, You have a side-by-side, because that's what the county required of us, a side-by-side. Once we gave them a side-by-side, they said this is not significant, but it does change a little bit, which means that it will require a new agreement, which basically go through that, to go through a new agreement. So, with the finding of the $5 million, where are you gonna pay the $5 million? And now the new contract that will be done will then allow the county will then say that they will then release that money. So, where are we? We need to get the $5 million. And the $5 million will then dictate the timeline.
Right. That's basically it. So I've been looking for this information, the county has been looking for this information, and we have the principal here. We have him sitting here, and this is the first time I want to say in my 4-year term where I have an unfettered opportunity to ask, hey, can we please get to the point? Let's look at the books together, let's run through the numbers and set a timetable. Let's just do it. Let's stop talking about it.
Okay, thank you. Next question.
Mr. Mayor, this is addressed to you. You said you formulated a committee to look at the fundraising and stuff. How aggressive is this committee going to be? Because it seems like Mr. Williams is saying that they're not going to give us any money till they see that we got our stuff together. Right. So if we were to come to them and say, well, the city pulled together the 400 churches, 100,000 people that are here, and they came up forth with such and such million, it seems like they would be a little more easy to grease the wheels with this, is what you're telling us without saying it. How aggressive is the? Are they going to reach out to the people? I mean, I know it's an election there, everyone's going to be worried more about the election, and this is going to get put back on the back burner. And also, the monies that does get collected, who collecting these monies and being accountable for this money. Because it's a good idea, sir, but I think if we show that we can do it, then, right? So
That's what we're trying to do is, and I would invite you to be a part of this committee. Nobody is trying to hide anything. We have a difficult problem, a difficult path, but we can go down that path if we stick together. But if we insist on the blame game, we get nowhere. I have Commissioner Morton here. The department is really coordinating the efforts. So you want to add something?
Please let him finish his comment. She would have the next question, then do the ask that question.
And lastly, I just want to ask everybody to be respectful of the elected officials' time and ask a question, if you can briefly, and a single question so they can actually answer it. Please try not to answer questions that have already been asked. Even if you didn't get an answer, please try not to ask the same questions over, because that's not going to do anything.
Okay, let me just lay this out. We have $6.3 million that the county is supposed to give us to complete the project. The county says we're not going to give you the $6.3 million until you come up with the estimated $5 million that the extra that the project's going to cost. So I said, how do we fill that gap? And I indicated that we are in contract with fundraising. We're establishing a 501c3 by which we will raise money. We have talked to the luminaires, Al B. Shore, J.B. Smooth, to name a few, that has wanted to help us with this condition. And when we get all of this together and put a number to it, we will sit down with the council, with the legislator, and that's how we're going to finish the project. But in the meantime, we are already working at Memorial Field, doing the grading and all the other ancillary things. The other part of it is that we have gone out to bid also for the steel that will support the tennis clubhouse. And when the tennis clubhouse, and when that is finished, we will be playing tennis, and we wonder what all this was about. But I say to you that this is a project for the community. This could be a project that could bring the community together, let them be a part of the fundraising and all of that. But there is absolutely nobody trying to hide anything. We are working feverishly to get this job done. We understand the concern of the community. It is not an easy task, but I can promise you, we will get this job done.
Okay, yes. Attending city council meetings for over 30 years. 10 years of it was Memorial Field when it needed to be fixed up. We have to realize, I don't know if it's going to take 10 years or whatever, we have to realize too, there's institutes all over the world, and here in the United States is over 700 years old. The key issue is when Memorial Field is finished, the upkeep. Like I said, you have institutions over 200 years old. The upkeep, what happened? The upkeep. Things do material, go, rot out, whatever. The upkeep, that's what you gotta remember. You're gonna build Memorial Field whenever, because I've been hearing about this 10 years to be refurbished. Over 10 years of city council meetings. You gotta realize too, when it's done, when, it is in my lifetime, the upkeep. Thank you.
You want to know? Well, first of all, the city really does not own Memorial Field at this point. The city, because of the bonding, you cannot bond for something that you don't own. Right now, the city does not own it, but a contract was signed that the city with the county, which says that the county is still in charge of this facility. We have the obligation, though, to build this facility. And we also have the obligation under the contract to maintain this facility. We also have obligations under the contract to not be a profit engine. And that's the contract that was signed.
Yeah, I want to respond to a question to that. About the city not owning. The city does own the Memorial Field. There is no dispute about that. As a matter of fact, we can provide the documents to show you the city owns. The county has what's called a lease arrangement. It's a capital lease. That's how they bond. They don't bond based on ownership. That was years, when you were the county legislator, I think they bonded based on ownership. It's now, how many years since then? They don't do that anymore. It's all of the properties that the county bond for are pursuant to a lease. The municipality owns, controls, and you have a contract, have every single kind of control over the facility, the new facility. The only thing the county does or requires is that the facility be open to all county residents, meaning that if a county resident wanted to book an event there, a large event, they would not be precluded because they don't live in Mount Vernon. It's like the county center. The county center, if you wanted to have something, if you're willing to pay the fees, you can have it up there. So it's the same concept, basically. But the ownership of the stadium has been and will always be owned by Mount Vernon. And there is no dispute about that. I can produce a documentation if anybody wants it to show that that is the case. It's a lease, a 15-year lease that they're bonding based on.
Wow.
Councilman Thomas.
Does that include the grounds?
All of it. All of it. Yeah. All of it.
I want to be, clear, look, I'm passionate about Memorial Field. I think we all are passionate. And being an original Razorback and having had the opportunity to define my character at Memorial Field and seeing that a whole generation of young families, young kids, our kids that we so say we love, do not have a field to play at is really upsetting. So forgive me for being extra passionate because look, for the past 4 years I've been seeking the same answers from our mayor, and the county legislature has been asking the same questions. And I think there are two parties at the table that agree we are ready to do what it takes to get this done. Clearly define, set a timetable, and say, look, Mount Vernon, this is when, and this is the goal that we set collectively to get this open. And frankly, Memorial Field is a field. It's not a busy intersection, it's a field. We can close off the stadium as far as I'm concerned, board it up, and let people use the track. Put up some temporary stands on the side. People just want access to the field. So whatever that's gonna cost, whatever it's gonna take, we need to do it, but we need to know how much money we spent, how much more is it gonna take. We heard 5 million, but we need a clear defined plan, and just, you know, look, I have some things with me, I have some papers here with me, and they're reflective. This whole project is reflective of how Mount Vernon has become a broken system. And there is a letter I have here from an ethics board member that resigned because this system is just not working. No, it is the time, because I just want to make clear that, we're sticking to Memorial Field, but what the point I'm making is, we need our current mayor to be very clear and transparent on this project, because we keep hearing advertising.
Hey, wait,
we keep
Finish what?
Let me finish.
This got nothing to do with the subject.
It has everything to do.
It has no
question, please. Let me just say this. This is why we can't get anything done.
Wait a minute, hold on, wait.
Please,
Andre,
just a question
Andre,
that the woman asked.
I am breaking down the question point by point, and I'm pointing out that this is why it is broken. I made it clear that
all right.
County Legislator Williams and Councilor Thomas and
We're going on to the next question.
I don't know what's wrong with pointing out.
We're going to go on to the next question because the time is limited here. We want to stick straight to the question. This gentleman been waiting patiently for his question. Please.
Thank you. I just want to thank all the parties concerned for coming out and trying to do the hard work, frankly, to keep the dialogue going. And I think that's one of the issues that I think we face in the community that historically has, you know, as the mayor's alluded to, suffered from different types of attacks, political, economic, and otherwise, and the legacy still continues. I think one of the worst parts of the legacy is this nature of voter, I'm going to call it voter miseducation. Because apathy, but that comes from a lack of informed content when it comes to the issues that we claim to know about. There's a lot of dialogue and stuff we claim to know about. But my question, as far as that real education that needs to happen is, I understand I believe it's a reasonable expectation that what Richard is calling transparency take place. And it's just a matter of full exploration of the numbers. For instance, Memorial Field is X amount of 100 square feet. Can we know what that is versus what it's going to be? Memorial Field.
Because if you look at the build out of this building is about the labor and the sweat of people who have had a lot of issues with law enforcement, and people count them out. And basically what Andre has done is actually help them develop skills, and you're looking around and you're seeing what those skills are. So that to me is very encouraging as a city to say, not looking at where we are, but where we ought to be and kind of focus. I want to thank also Damon and AJ in Black Westchester, because sometimes when you're having dialogue, I know as elected officials, some of us get very kind of, well, I think they're attacking me, and I don't want to get involved, and I don't want to go there. When they invited me to come and speak, I said, look, I have no problem with that, because you know what? We need to be having these conversations. If Mount Vernon is going to be a good place and is going to be improved, it's not going to be improved about us just being silent, being quiet, and not raising the issues. And I told Richard this, I said, look, he's a young man. He's a first-term councilman, right? And you know, I understand people get kind of antsy when he pushes the envelope. But pushing the envelope is not a bad thing, because when you push the envelope, you get other people to respond, and you get accountability, and you get things done. You've got to be, sometimes you have to do that, rather than just sitting back. So I don't want to, as a young man, a young leader in our city, I want to encourage him. Obviously, I would be glad to mentor him, because you know, sometimes your passions get in the way, but your heart is in the right place. You should be able to raise these issues. And actually, I thought that it was a good thing that he continued to raise issues that are important. I want to encourage him to do that. And I don't think, and I say this, whether it's in front of a whole crowd or whether it's two people, because I fundamentally believe that we've got to encourage our young people in this city to take more responsibility and leadership. And if they may be off track, we correct them, but we do not get to a point where we say, well, you know, they shouldn't be raising issues. And I want to encourage them to do that. Memorial Field, to finalize, say, look, it's been a long road, and I can tell you, I know the entire road from the time it started under Mayor Young to where it is now. And we didn't get into all of that today, but there's been a lot of mistakes, a lot of errors along the way. We can sit here, and I know there's people out there pointing their fingers. Lyndon Williams is at the county and he's not giving us the money. Or the county. Look, I'm known to be a person who advocates for Mount Vernon. I've been doing that from the time of the county legislature. But I also know that we have to have credibility as a city. We can't go up and say to people, give me $6 million and expect that they're just going to give you the money when they've spent $1.3 million for a design that you haven't used. They spent $2 million for demolition, which you haven't demolished. So you've got to be able to have some credibility, and that's what I was saying to the mayor. I said, you got a gap to fill. You have to come back, and that gap is caused by the decisions that the city made to really rehab the stadium versus doing what Yankee Stadium did, building a new stadium. So now you've got to get the community to come together and figure out how you're going to do it without putting it on the backs of the taxpayers. And so that's the plan they have. Let's see the timeline. The timeline you're talking about is going to directly relate to the way they complete that plan. And I think the council needs to be involved, actively involved. It's not only the administration, the council has to be actively involved. I was on the council. In this kind of issue, we would have been actively involved. Between me, Lou Thompson, who was on there, Bill Randall, we would have been actively involved because we want to shape getting to a decision. The council need to be actively involved, and they need to develop their own position. You know, I'm not saying you go against the administration just to go against the administration. Be independent, develop your own position, and move it forward. That's what this community expects, not for us to sit back and not do what we're supposed to do. Thank you very much again for having us here, and I really, Rich.
I'm going to let Rich close, and then I'm going to say last words.
Yeah, I just want to say that, look, I appreciate everything that Black Westchester did and Andre did to open up the space and facilitate the dialogue. And you know, thank you to Legislator Williams for, you know, encouraging me to continue to push the envelope. And what I can tell you is I spoke with some folks in Mount Vernon that volunteer in Mount Vernon, and they say, man, you have to fight to even volunteer in Mount Vernon. And frankly, I'm not afraid to fight for Mount Vernon. I don't care what it takes and who I have to go up against, because at the end of the day, it's our kids, it's our families that are being denied access to Memorial Field. And yes, I'm very personal about it because I grew up there, spent a lot of time there, hit those steps hundreds of times as a Razorback and playing football there for the high school. So as a voice of the next generation, we are incredibly upset that even as a sitting council member, trying to collaborate with our fellow colleagues in government, we can't even get a straight answer on the timeline, and we can't even get anything nailed down as really definitive. So I'm not apologetic for anything. Just know that I'm going to continue to work as collaboratively as possible with the county, with my colleagues on the council and the mayor's office. The bottom line is your question, everybody's question was the same. When? And let's stop dithering in, you know, these stories about advertising and naming rights. We can decide that right now. All right, we want to raise $500,000 for naming rights. We want this. Just set the budget, set the goal, and let's get it done. But at the end of the day, look, we're in a $5 million hole, and that's clear. And what that translates into is a 10% tax rate increase if we don't fund it any other way. So all I can say is, as a sitting member of the council, as chair of Public Works, as someone that wants to see Mount Vernon rise again, I'm going to continue to fight for Mount Vernon in its future, because right now we're just not getting the cooperation that we need from the county and the council to get this thing done. So there are at least two parties, just want to emphasize again, that want to get this done as transparently as possible.
Want to thank you. But before, I want to give Councilman Your Honor a chance to speak because he wasn't here. And
No, I was here.
I mean, he wasn't up here though. But I mean,
Okay, but as a sitting council member also, I've been here from the very beginning, when my name or the council's name wasn't even on the proposed budget, okay, or the proposed Memorial Stadium configuration, all right? And it was understood from the very beginning that there was a price on Memorial Field that wasn't realistic from the very beginning. It was also mentioned that in the county, that there was a stadium that was being built for $60,000 and it went to $100 and something thousand. I don't know the exact amount. So there's games being played in politics, okay? This being an election year, you'll hear a lot of this unless we get away from the political piece of this and do this correctly, because a lot of things are being, continue to be said. And if you listen to it, you'll hear the politics of it. The politics for us people is what's in our way. We need to run this city like we run a business, okay? We are a city of all, or run by predominantly black people. I am so proud of this. I was one of the ones that made him run those steps, okay, down Memorial Field as one of the organizers or founders of the Razorbacks that he talks about. So don't ever think that I am not as passionate as he is. I'm just not as loud as he is, but I'm doing my due diligence in the background. That's the way I work. I don't have to be loud. But the thing is, I think we were assigned something today to think about in raising money, all right? Because now they put on us, unless we raise $5,000, you're not getting the money. That's from a Republican administration. 5 million, you know what I'm talking about. All right? Remember now, what we have is a Republican administration that's not going to allow us to perform as if we were a part of them. It's all politics. But understand that we must come together, and if we want it right, we'll come together and get it right. Okay? Thank you.
We're gonna close out. First, we want to thank everybody that came: Mayor Davis, Councilman Williams, Legislator Webb, and Councilman Thomas. We gotta understand, this is a project for the city, and even though everybody in the city of Mount Vernon was invited, who you see here? The community people. And we got to understand, this is a reflection on how black government is. Let's be honest. If we can't manage a city park, a city stadium, in a 4x4 square miles of land, no wonder Barack Obama is catching the hell that he's catching on Capitol Hill. We have a responsibility, not just to people in Mount Vernon, but to the rest of Black Westchester. You understand? We are the Mecca for Westchester, and we got to get it right. No matter what no matter what, we might have different ideas, and we might see things different. But at the end of the day, we are representing black people throughout Westchester. We're the only city like this in the state. So let's recognize our responsibility, not just to the people of Mount Vernon, not just to ourselves, but to the black civilization that's in the United States of America. Yes, I want to let y'all close out and
let me just.
Good afternoon. Okay, I've sat and I've listened, and I think that there's some things that have to be made clear. Now, I refused to come up at first because I didn't want this to become a debate. I was here for fact-finding purposes. I needed to hear, as a citizen, the status of Memorial Field. Now, a lot has been said about my administration and the original plan. I want to be clear about this because I think that a lot of it, in terms of how it has been addressed, has not only been distorted, but borderlines on lies. The first thing is this. Memorial Field, the condition of Memorial Field did not start on January 1st of 2008 when I took office. Memorial Field was already deteriorated and had been deteriorated for some 25 years in need of repair before I got to office. The plan that my administration came with was indeed in conjunction with the county based on a lot of reasons, Number one, there's something that I hear that I think needs to first be clarified. We are now talking about a gap of $5 million. But my plan, the original plan, we had $12 million from the county. Let's be clear about that. Let's be clear about the fact that the plan that was proposed by the Young administration was something that included a series of forums, community forums. And yes, the county did indeed put in initially $1.2 million for an environmental study. It was not Clinton Young who said that the stands were unsafe. It was the state of New York that said that the stands had to be taken down. Period. Now, listen to this. There were people who said that the original plan was too much for the city. That is not true. That is absolutely not true. Just like they're talking about naming rights and fundraising, etc., that was part of the original plan where we would have had the best state-of-the-art stadium for our children in all of Westchester County. It has already been done in New Rochelle, and it could have been done again. However, I want to be extra clear in terms of protocol and respect. When I came into office, there were certain things that I had to change that my predecessor, that I did not agree with my predecessor. That was my right. And I assume responsibility for those changes that I made. The present mayor had the same right to do so. So understand, when the plans changed, the Young administration plan was no longer effective, okay? That was no longer in front of the County Board of Legislators or the county for funding. That's old. That was done away with. And he has that right. I want to make it clear. I didn't want to get into a debate with the present mayor whether he had that right or not. He has that right. He has that right to say, listen, I did not agree with that plan, so it's out. So a new plan, understand, takes you back to square one.
That's right.
Takes you back to square one. Period. It means new environmental studies. It means everything from square one. What is most disturbing about this is that they cannot present a timeline.
Yeah.
That's just not fair to the people of the city. It's not. Because we have an example of what was done for the previous plan in terms of a timeline and a budget and everything that was done within a 14-month period from the time I started the process to the time we got the first check from the county was a 14-month period. So we need to continue to ask the questions. I'm all for the renovation of Memorial Field. I'm just as passionate as everybody else who played down there, just as passionate. What I am saying is this. 3 things. Number 1, the Young plan was put aside. A new plan started from square one, period. So now we have to decide if we're going to move forward, and we should be involved with the renovation, no matter what plan it is. That's up to these 3 entities that are here, okay? The second thing is, it's not difficult to present a timeline in a budget. It is just not. So I thank you, and I just wanted again to defend the Young plan, or the Young administration plan, in terms of what is needed for today.
Thank you.